Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Mayor Randall Woodfin, along with Councilor Hunter Williams, City Council for District 2. We're coming to you live today. We hate we can't be with you in person, but because of the COVID protocol, we at a minimum still want to have this town hall. So this town hall is all about District 2 today. And so we'll jump right in. I'll introduce myself. I want to give Councilor Williams a chance, opportunity to introduce himself. He'll kick it back to me. We'll go through some brief updates and then we'll open up Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Mayor. I'm hopefully don't have to introduce myself. If you care enough to tune in right now, you probably know that this is your mayor and I'm your city councilor, Hunter Williams. I would like to thank the mayor's staff and him for putting this together. I think that these types of events where we actually get to interact with the citizens, with those that live in the neighborhoods, and see the services that we provide and depend on the services that the city of Birmingham provides on a day-to-day basis is very important. I think that both you and I hate to be cheesy, but strive to fulfill your logo. I know that we consider the citizens of not just District 2, but really the entire city of Birmingham as our customers. And as the leaders of this business, we want to make sure that our customers, albeit our residents and business owners, are taken care of. So excited about tonight. We get to showcase a little bit of what has city employees have been doing throughout District 2. A lot of times our residents might not physically see some of the progress that's being made and some of the work that's being done. And we get to talk about that tonight. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you, Councilor. He's right. There's sometimes we put our head down. We just keep working. This is a good time to stop, pause, put our heads up, and give the citizens of District 2 an update. Shout out to India Bailey for always making sure we take care of Councilor Williams, the citizens of District 2. With that said, we'll jump right in. If you can go to the first slide. So on this slide, y'all, it's important to remember you can always call Councilor Williams' office. He does a really good job. India and his team, Experiment, are very intentional about follow-up constituent services, responding to emails, calls, texts, etc. You can also call the mayor's office, and you can also call 311. So those are three different examples: Councilor Williams' office, the mayor's office, as well as 311 when you have an issue, concern, question, etc. And I want you all to remember you have two full-time community resource representatives. Their job is not isolated to what I call neighborhood meetings alone. Harold Houston and Melanie Martin love their job. They wake up every day and want to advocate on behalf of the citizens of District 2. So on this slide, you see both their cell phone numbers, their office numbers, and their email addresses. If you have an issue in District 2, one of the neighborhoods in District 2, question, concern, thought, and make sure we start off that information. District 2, related to the rest of the city, this is a PSA related to the COVID-19 vaccination update. Listen, y'all, I'll let Councilor Williams say anything after I share this. It is extremely important that you sign up to get vaccinated if you qualify now based on the requirements. We want to encourage our citizens for 2 reasons. Being vaccinated saved your life, saves other lives. On this slide you see here, the time they're up, when they're up, and the number to call, and or the email, the website to go to get additional information. In addition to that, there are other sites we look to bring online very soon for our citizens that have easier, closer access to.
Yeah, I can't reiterate enough the importance of getting vaccinated so that we can get back to a more normal. We can shed the masks, which Journey did. Make sure we were 6 feet apart today. Got that measure and stick out before anybody posts something about it. But in all seriousness, it is very important. Get signed up. Call the number. Visit the website. Also, some of y'all might have noticed that all of the Walmarts in the eastern side of the city of Birmingham are also doing the vaccine. That can be accessed by going to walmart.com. It probably would not hurt to do both, to try to get in line by calling the number or going on to the Jefferson County EMA website. I'm also looking to see if there is a Walmart, 16 in the county that are giving them out, 3 of which are on the east side of Birmingham in District 2, and see if that you can get an appointment. A lot of people, I've had hundreds of emails of people that are getting appointments at Walmart. However, they are booked up fully every single day, so it is first come, first served.
Councilor is not going to brag on himself. I'll take the time to do that on his behalf. Here's the reason why. 2 Walmarts that are actually located in the district are now vaccination sites when originally they were not. So kudos to his leadership and advocating on behalf of the citizens and not just 2, but all of the to make sure Walmart is not shortchanging the citizens. In addition to that, we both acknowledge that everyone does not have a smartphone. Everyone does not have access to the website. So again, for our citizens who don't, especially for the seniors, elders who live in District 2, if you need a landline to call to get access or set up your appointment, please call 205-858-2221. Again, that's 205-858-2221. We're going to speed through these next couple of slides for you. We'll start with demolition. District 2 is fortunate related to citywide, a city made up of 9 city council districts. Although District 2 does have some form of blight, it's not prevalent across the district entirely. I say that because when you see 63 demolition cases where blight has been removed in the last 3 years since January 1 of 2018, it may seem small, but that's because it's small in comparison to the other districts where there's a lot of blight removal. So to share that number. In addition to that, where you will see a higher number is code enforcement and code inspections. Well, Councilor Williams and his team are very adamant that we stick to this. So 639 cases in 1 year, y'all. This is where our team, the actual civil servants, professionals, have engaged in issues where citizens may be in violation of our housing code. And so I want the councilor to say anything he wants to on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times people call, and when I say a lot of times, at least 639 times this year, people have called our office and asked for housing code inspections or housing code enforcement. A lot of times people don't see an immediate change in the way that the house next to them or the house that is in their neighborhood that they called about might look like, but that is because there's a process. Everybody deserves the same due process. And so we send out, the mayor's team sends out code enforcement to go look at that housing. And then there's a process where they're allowed to actually respond to that in a specific amount of time after certified mail is sent to that housing owner. And so while you might be calling about a house and while you might not see a change in 30 days, in 60 days, in 90 days, the inspection has been done, the enforcement action has been taken. That property owner might need to go to municipal court or go do something to fix whatever the issue is with that specific property. But this number really shows that when you do call in, the city does send somebody out and an inspection is done.
Cool. I'm going to call an audible right quick. Everybody who's listening in on this, and that's our tech team behind the scenes team. Is there any information we need to repeat because we may have had technical difficulties when people could hear? Cool. I want to start at Walmart. Vaccine? Cool. So I understand that some of our listeners may not have heard information related to vaccines. Short version is this. Vaccinations are a priority for the administration as well as Councilor Williams and his colleagues right now. And there's nothing more important than getting our citizens in Birmingham vaccinated for 2 reasons, and Councilor Williams will add and share his thoughts as well related to what he's done on behalf of getting vaccinations to our citizens.
One, it saves your life. Two, it saves other lives. Really want to encourage you to sign up and get your vaccination. For those who do not have access to the internet or a smartphone, there's a landline you can call to get assistance. That's 205-858-2221. Again, that's 205-858-2221. This is the landline hotline for our citizens to call the Jefferson County Vaccine Call Center.
Yeah,
Council?
and so Mayor, to your point, look out for your neighbors. If you have an elderly neighbor that doesn't have internet access, might need help calling the hotline and dealing with that, look out for your neighbors. One thing that the mayor and I frequently talk about is equitable access to this vaccine. This vaccine is not only the path to normalcy, but is also something that is literally a life-saving vaccine that all of our citizens need to have the opportunity to take. And so with that, we want to make sure that there are sites across the city of Birmingham in a very equitable way so that people can access the vaccine. So I think we're going to have forthcoming news over the next several weeks of additional sites, as well as the ability to go on to walmart.com. And there are 3 Walmarts on the eastern side of Birmingham, 2 technically in the city limits of Birmingham and in District 2, and 16 in Jefferson County, where you can go on and get a appointment to get that vaccine. It is first come, first serve, and it is online only. So that's one of those things. Look out for your neighbors, and also don't forget to call the Jefferson County hotline at 205-858-2221.
Thank you, Councilor Williams. That's kind of funny saying, because I used to just call him Hunter. Can I just call you Hunter?
Yeah, I can call you Randall.
Call me Randall.
All right.
So yeah, listen, we're gonna drop all the names. 1, 2. He's not gonna brag on himself, so if you didn't hear it earlier, look, Hunter is responsible for the reason that the 2 Walmarts on the eastern side of town now have vaccine sites because of his advocacy on behalf of not only the citizens of District 2, but all of the city. This is live, y'all. This is not meant to be perfect. This is meant to get you the information you need. So again, I'm gonna call Auburn and ask the tech team, are we clear now? Can everybody hear us? Is there any additional information we need to repeat? We're good? Cool. We're gonna keep it smooth. We're gonna keep it flowing. Next slide talks about zoning enforcement cases. Council, look at that. It's so natural now, right?
Call
Hunter,
it whatever you want.
Hunter mentioned earlier about some of the active cases in the city. What you see here on this slide, everybody, is about some of the violations outside of the housing code that deal with residential property, which includes outside storage. That is a no-no for the stuff in your front yard, your front porch, as well as the backyard stuff that can visibly be seen either by your neighbor or by anybody passing by. That is a hindrance and violates that code. In addition to that, other home occupation violations, fence violations, and inoperable vehicles. Literally, I was in the neighborhood yesterday, and a gentleman had, y'all, it was something crazy I hadn't seen in a while. He had at least 14 inoperable vehicles in his yard. Had an officer pull up, he literally tagged every car, well, the officer tagged every car in that yard. It is inappropriate, it is wrong, it is against the law. Do your part, keep your area and your home clean, because that's what a good neighbor does. You want to add anything to this?
Yeah, just, with all of these enforcement cases, whether it be zoning or code enforcement for a housing issue, you might see some people might be slipping a little bit and might think that there's not going to be repercussions because municipal court has been closed due to COVID over the past several months when we're dealing with these types of cases. But these cases are still active and they are going to be prosecuted, and municipal court is going to be open. So be a good neighbor. If there's somebody next to you, speak to them, whatever. If you have to report them. But also don't be a trashy neighbor. Don't park your car in the grass. Don't throw all your trash off the front porch. Just be a good neighbor.
Yeah, so listen, Hunter just made me realize this is a really good time to share a couple thoughts. This thought is literally based on what he just said, being a good neighbor. The city of Birmingham has been fortunate to have neighborhood associations for many, many years. Actually, probably prior to Hunter and I being alive. But him and I attend enough meetings where it was never the intention for 100% of neighborhood meetings that are monthly to be just 100% gripe sessions either. A lot of it is actually meant to get to know your neighbors, build better relationships, etc. So we want to encourage you not just to attend your neighborhood meetings, but we want to encourage you to have some portion of that meeting facilitate dedicated to just socializing, getting to know your neighbor more. In addition to that, the season's changing. We want to encourage you to maybe have some form of like block gatherings too. It shouldn't be a situation if you see something that you may not like or you know it's in violation, just to call 311 or call 911. If you get to know your neighbor, it's possible you can create a situation you can go talk to them yourself, and you may realize it may be a teachable or educational moment. They may not even know they're in violation of an actual city ordinance. So we just want to encourage that because we believe being a good neighbor is important, not just, dialing 311 and 911 when you see something. I know that was not nowhere on what y'all see on the screen, but anything you want to add to that?
No, I couldn't have said it better verbatim, but yeah, we're District 2 throughout all of our neighborhoods is very centric on code enforcement. We do have a lot of code enforcement actions, probably more so than any other district, and which is a good thing. It means that the residents in District 2 care enough about their neighborhood not to let their neighborhood become junky and not to let other neighbors bring down the value of their houses. But with everything going on with COVID, it might be appropriate to walk over to the neighbor and ask if they can move their car off the lawn rather than calling the police. I'm happy for anybody to always call my office, but you got to live next door to the person, so might be a good thing to do.
Yeah, good point, man. Thanks, Hunter. So we debating, y'all. Short version, season's changing. Grass is going to start growing. This has been a tough challenge for the city of Birmingham across the entire city for quite some time. We addressed the issue of, abandoned properties. We get rid of that in an exchange. Unfortunately, another problem is created of overgrown lots. I'll make a couple notes. We got this information. It's pretty standard. You can read it. A couple notes are one, by law, we can't just go on the property and cut it. There's a process. It's not the shortest process. Note number two, we are actively engaging ahead of the season changing additional private contractors to help us make sure we can cut more lots and cut them in a timely fashion because with so many lots, the city does get behind. The third note is this. When we talked about being good neighbors earlier, Hunter and I are going to share something that we just want you to take as is, run with it, please. Get creative. If you got overgrown lot in your block, why don't you and your neighbors, just an idea, adopt this lot? It actually may be private property, but I promise you, you won't get in trouble. Y'all figure out something to collectively keep it clean if the city's taking too long. I just want to throw that out there. Promise we won't call the police. Hunter probably don't like that because he's the police. All right. Speaking of illegal dumping, again, I'm not gonna say anything that's on this slide. I want to give a challenge to every neighborhood president, every neighborhood vice president, and every neighborhood secretary that's a part of any neighborhood association in District 2, as well as the active residents of District 2. Please I want to encourage you. There is never a better time than to use neighborhood funds to get cameras up in areas where even if the no dump site or no dumping sign is there, like in this picture you all see, that we just got to find a way to catch people. We got the no, don't be a dummy campaign. We've shared with you over and over now, and you see it, you can use your device. But in order to catch people and actually prosecute people, the truth is we need more eyes, the best eyes, additional eyes will be cameras. You want to say anything to this?
Yeah, I know that illegal dumping has been an issue throughout the entire city of Birmingham. really all of Jefferson County. It's not just a Birmingham problem. But one thing that I would say is focused to people that are rehabbing houses, that are flipping houses. They might live in the neighborhood and they might be flipping a house or two in that neighborhood. The city of Birmingham requires everybody that is remodeling a house to get a dumpster and to dispose of it themselves. We've seen a lot of people that will dump trash. They live in the neighborhood. They have to drive by the trash that they've dumped in the neighborhood, but they'll go ahead and do so. So it goes back to being a good neighbor. Whether you're a contractor, a licensed contractor, whether you are just flipping houses in the neighborhood in which you live, or whether it's your house, you're doing work to yourself. You know, you have to, your neighbors and you have to drive by this. So don't put the trash across the street in your neighbor's yard. Don't put it across the street in the city right away. Don't put it on the corner of 6th Avenue South and Rugby, which somebody obviously did before the mayor had Public Works go out and clean that up. Be cognizant of the fact that, you know, you can dump in, if you're a resident of Birmingham, you can dump in our city landfill for free. So there's no reason to dump it in your neighbor's front yard.
So here they are, it's for free, like free, as in like keep driving, like come out of the neighborhood, take it to the landfill, because it's illegal to dump in your own neighborhood. And by the way, it's nasty. Stop doing it. So when Councilor Williams and I came in, like he has made this very, very clear what we're about to talk about. The 2 projects, Mayor, we got to figure out a way to get done. That's the removal of Bank High School in the form of either rehab or tear it down. Rehab or tear it down has been a conversation we've been having. Start and stop. Not his fault, and we've had some issues. I'm really, really happy to say, the second thing is paving the port on Madrid. So we'll get to that in a minute. I ought to let him speak to it because this has been something I know since we came in the tail end of 2017, when we started talking about priority in the beginning of 18, related to money and ideas. This is something council had interest in, so I'm going to shut up and let him give y'all the news.
Yeah, so really exciting news today. The Birmingham City Council allocated the ADEM grant, which is essentially the funding to tear down the 9 structures that make up the Banks High School campus. So you have the Banks High School site that is dilapidated, and across the street you have the Banks Middle School site, which is still owned and used by Birmingham City Schools, obviously not as a functioning middle school, but as a book depository and I think some technology servers and things like that. But the City of Birmingham site has sat vacant, I know, for the past 13, 14 years. It has been something that not only multiple councilors, but multiple mayors have also promised to tear down. It has been something that has been a blight, not only to the Southeast Lake neighborhood directly, but really the entire community. Everywhere around it, from Roebuck Springs, South Roebuck, East Lake, North and South. This has been a major blight to the east side of Birmingham. So just real quick, I want to run through, people, one thing is, one thing that I hear a lot is, it's an election year. So finally, Randall and Hunter are tearing down Banks.
Tell them what you did, 18,
But
19, 20.
let's talk about what we've done for Banks. So first of all, while the mayor's office and city council runs concurrent, there is a 6-week gap in which the city council serves with the previous mayor. So the first thing that we tried to do was do a budget addendum, and this is when Mayor Bell was still in office, and that actually ended up failing because I did not have the support of my colleagues on that. But then after that, the first thing that we did is sit down, talk about priorities in terms of funding for that year. And this was priority number 1 for District 2. So what that looked like is we had immediately had an RFP put out, and that RFP did not garner any type of response of it from a responsible or someone that had the financial ability to do something with that bank site, which is important because we don't want this to be a dilapidated structure for the next 10 years. We want this to be adding value to the neighborhood. So since we were not able to get a private developer to take on that RFP, we went to Auburn Urban Design Studios. The students at Auburn Urban Design Studios spent an entire semester looking at different conceptual drawings. We had several neighborhood and community meetings to get community input on what they wanted to see in their neighborhood. And all of that was presented not only to the community, but also to developers. And a second RFP was then issued with those conceptions and with that those conceptual designs about what a private person or private developer could place there. Unfortunately, same thing happened. We did not get a financially stable or solvent developer that was able to take on that site. And this site is extremely, not only is it important to Southeast Lake, because we have a neighborhood that's home values are increasing by at least 25% over the past 3 years, year after year after year. So we have a neighborhood that's taking off, and we have a blighted structure that is acting as something that's holding that back. So it has been a priority. We've gone through these iterations. What we're going to do is, as we announced today, this will be torn down, and we still want if there is a qualified and financially stable developer, we might not have an RFP out right now, but we are open and available to discuss anything to do with that site, because we want this to be a continued catalyst to that 25-30% improvement that we're seeing in the East Lake community.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Long answer that was needed because there was a lot of misinformation out there. A promise kept, and as the young people would say, I think he just showed y'all the receipts. So, I'm going to allow the counselor to speed through the next slide because as chairman of public safety, this is something that's been important to the residents of District 2 as well.
Yeah, I think it's just as important to the residents of District 2 as a conversation, Mayor, that you and I had several times. But I remember one time when we were having it, our firefighters, paramedics, and all of our emergency services personnel sometimes are placed into a different kind of queue than our regular employees. But at the end of the day, our emergency services personnel are our employees of the city of Birmingham. And it is something that we share. We absolutely have to take care of all of the city of Birmingham's employees. That definitely includes first responders and those that work in our emergency communications department. So this is something that really, it's something that needed to be taken care of so that we're taking care of our employees, those first responders that are out there running all of those medical and fire calls pretty constantly in District 2. I look at the numbers and it's pretty astounding. There's a lot of jokes between police and firefighters that firefighters are always sleeping, this kind of thing. I assure you in District 2, those jokes don't hold much water because they're running medical calls pretty much all 24-hour shift.
Absolutely. So the next slide is just giving you who the leadership is of South Precinct and East Precinct. And y'all, if you don't know, District 2 is not, from a landmass, it's not small. I mean, it runs east, First Avenue North, Roebuck Parkway, all the way back up to Porto Madrid, Montclair, Montevallo, and literally south all the way down 280, as well as wrapping 459. And so with its stretch, it includes 2 precincts, south and east. You see the 2 captains here. You see the 2 numbers here. Do not hesitate, y'all, separate from 911. For non-emergency issues, you can call the precinct and actually speak to leadership. I really want to encourage you to do that, to develop relationships with the precinct leadership for either long-standing issues or issues y'all can co-coordinate on solving. With that being the case, we also want you to know that every issue doesn't necessarily require you to talk to a Birmingham police officer, an actual sworn officer. We have civilian employees as well that engage in crime prevention. Everything cannot be about enforcement in District 2. So you see here Ms. Ragland and Ms. Burton for South Precinct and East Precinct. If you have a situation in District 2, you believe in coordination with either your neighborhood association leadership or your block watch program, we really want you to take advantage of engaging Ms. Ragland and Ms. Burton via email and phone. I highly recommend that they are very qualified in what they do and can help you solve issues where you don't necessarily always have to call a civilian, actual sworn officer or 911. One last thing about public safety on the next slide. This information is self-explanatory. I did some PSAs earlier today. I think it's worth sharing with the residents of District 2 because two things come to mind. You call us about gunshots and you call us about speeding. So I'm going to talk about those two issues very, very briefly. We can get into any more of the questions you have. One, to January 1 citywide, we're taking well off over 350 guns off the street in 9 weeks. That is a considerable amount of guns. We continue to throw everything we can at taking guns off the street, but unfortunately, people still have easy access to them. Keep calling 911 if you hear gunshots. That is the fault. But we will continue to be aggressive with taking illegal guns off the street. 2, speeding. It is one of those things where people are excited and people are pissed at us. Here's the excitement. We have more radar guns. And so we get the complaints. We actually set up traps. Stop speeding, period. But definitely stop speeding in District 2. 2, stop complaining if you get a ticket because you were speeding. So that's it. Anything?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Birmingham Police is out writing citations. You either know it because you have gotten a citation and you're mad about it. A lot of those people are the same people that were calling earlier to get the speeding enforcement out there in the street. If you get a ticket, there's nothing I can do about it. If you don't want the ticket, don't speed. So we get a lot of calls about that. It's also important to point out that our traffic homicides and the amount of traffic accidents that we have has decreased significantly since we have implemented some of the speeding enforcement actions that we have done over the past years, including issuing radar guns, having some traffic enforcement units out in hot spots. And a lot of times they're there making sure, if they look at the data. So if there's it's not only complaint driven, but it's also accident driven. If there are several accidents at an intersection, I know on Crestwood Boulevard, we've had issues with that. You can expect to see Birmingham Police out there writing citations, and it's not a fundraising mechanism at all. Actually, many people don't know this. They think we're out there trying to raise funds because of our deficit, but actually that money goes mainly to the state of Alabama and not the city of Birmingham. It is not any kind of, there's nothing to it except for the fact that we get not only calls and complaints, but we also have a responsibility to reduce traffic fatalities and reduce those accidents by enforcement. And it is something that's working, I think, by roughly 20%.
It is. Y'all stop speeding, stop doing donuts in the street. So, this is something important, everybody. I'm not going to give you the stats again because you see them here. Here's what I want to bring to you. We have a drug and nuisance abatement team. And I know between Ms. India and Hunter, Councilor Williams, we've all gotten the calls about a possible drug house in District 2 or some commercial property that we believe illegal activities going down. So Ms. Nicole King, who leads the legal department, along with DPD and others, they have this drug and nuisance abatement team and they are doing wonders. Please take advantage and call this number, everybody, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you believe your neighbor or a house or home in your block or on your street or in your neighborhood, there is active drug activity, illegal drug transactions, whatever it is, 205-254-2369. Again, 205-254-2369. This team has the ability to investigate, and if it's adequate information, bring it before a judge. And if the judge rules in favor of the city that this home or house or commercial property is a drug nuisance, then the owner or the renter can be evicted. And that is a great legal way to remove this issue from your area. Want to add anything?
Nothing other than thanking Nicole King for her work in that. She and I speak probably maybe every other week, her giving me updates on what is going on in reference to that. So those cases, as you can see by those numbers, are actively taking place, and utilize that number on the bottom of the screen if there is a legitimate, not you don't like your neighbor, but a legitimate narcotics issue.
Cool. Quick update on the critical repair program. Citywide, we are sorry to tell you that for anybody that was approved for home repairs in 2020, that program was delayed due to the coronavirus, and that's a federal funded program that wasn't our funds. Next slide, street paving. I'm just going to jump straight in. I'm going to keep it very simple. The top streets we get complaints about in District 2 are Porto Madrid and Grants Mill Road. Happy to tell you that a Porto Madrid will be paid before or by May, ideally next month in April. But there's always weather concern, but hopefully it will be paid in April, as well as Grants Mill Road will be paid this summer. You see this slide, and then you have the next slide. Hopefully you all can read that. There's a lot of streets that have either been paid or will be paid in the next 3 years. I'm not going to read them all off to you because we do want to get into your questions. I just looked at the clock. The next slide deals with what's coming up this summer. About 5 miles of paving, close to $1 million. Potholes, again, close to 1,500 have been paid, repaired, or filled just in the last year. Please continue to call 311 so we can continue to repair potholes. And sidewalks. Sidewalks is a big deal for residents in District 2. It is an active district related to citizens who like to walk. We will continue to repair sidewalks as well as separate from that. There is a sidewalk plan for new sidewalks over a 5-year period. I will make this note because I had a chance to walk with the city engineer yesterday in some areas over the west side. We visited 3 different homes, one in Fairview and two in Central Park. And literally to the T, what we found in all 3 of those was some of the area causing the sidewalk that needed to be repaired was nature. It was a tree. It was the roots under what I call a sidewalk put down by man. Nature is going to always win. It's either one or 2 scenarios for sidewalk repair. Either we can repair it by removing one block and doing some tree treatment, and that's easy, or we can't repair it due to where it sits close to private property, near your driveway, etc. So we have to investigate your sidewalk issue first, and it is not the fastest process. So I just wanted to give you that update. With that, we are going to go into questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Silver Scarborough, who's going to quarterback us. We have several of our department heads from the police department, from PEP, from transportation, from community development, and from public works on the call. So if the counselor or I cannot answer your question, they will. Ms. Silver?
Thank you so much, Mayor and Councilor, and we'd like to say welcome to everyone who's with us tonight, including all of his neighborhoods, which include Brown Springs, Crestline, Crestwood South, Eastwood, Huffman, Liberty Highlands, Overton, Roebuck Springs, and South East Lake. And before we get on to questions from the district, Mayor, we need your input to clear up something that has appeared in the Facebook comments tonight. And the question that was put out there was, have appointed employees had their pay restored? And there was also a question about, is the city going to reinstate holiday pays and so forth for BPD, Birmingham Fire and Rescue, DPW, and so forth.
Thank you. So no, appointed employees are not privileged in this administration. As a matter of fact, appointed employees are in the front of the line related to making sure we always take care of our civil service employees first. That being the case, we answered the question. Appointed employees' salaries have not been restored fully. They're in the same boat and category as all of our civil service employees. Related to this upcoming budget that I have not presented to the council yet, it'll be sometime in May, but I have made this clear to my finance director, separate from whatever happens with our finances, which we don't know yet. We imagine there will be a shortfall because the coronavirus is still here. We're still collecting business license taxes. Even if that's the case, what we will do, what I will be recommending to the council is for every city employee, if they're eligible for a COLA, merit, longevity, that it be reinstated in this upcoming budget, as well as making sure holiday pay is restored. I think that is fair to our employees. They received the brunt of the financial cuts last year because they make up 70% of every dollar that's spent. But we need to make sure we find more unique ways to support our employees. So I wanted to clear that. I didn't know that was going to be a question, but having the opportunity to clear that up. If y'all want to ask me that every day, cool. It would be the same answer every day.
Much appreciated, sir. Thank you so much. And Counselor, this is a question we actually received from you just before the meeting, and we try our best to get those taken care of. And we want BPD to be on standby for this. And it was raised last night during the Roebuck neighborhood meeting, and residents expressed concerns regarding speeding at West Boulevard between Beverly Drive and the Eastern Health Center. And they just want to know if anything can be done about the speeding or if anything can be done to calm down speeding in that area.
Captain of East Precinct is definitely on the call. She can tell you more about their speed trap efforts.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Captain Quigley Vining, and speaking on behalf of the speeding issue over there on West Boulevard, I have been noticing an increase in a couple wrecks that have taken out some traffic poles over there. So I spoke with my wreck investigator earlier, and he's going to check the friction value of the street. We had an issue with that going up to Medical Center East and used to have a lot of wrecks there, and we got it corrected. So pending that, I'll work with BDOT as well as Public Works on that. And also, we do daily run radar, so we will shift our efforts over to that area.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you so much. And we apologize for that audio in the beginning. As Mayor mentioned earlier, this is definitely live. And so we want to have BDOT standing by as well. And the question is, can you please give us a status update on the planned Haygood sidewalk project?
Well, I think maybe Ms. Denise Bell, Capital Projects, can take that question. Or James Fowler, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. So I'm James Fowler. I serve as the director of the Birmingham Department of Transportation. And so for that project, a couple of updates. One, the drawings are complete for the project. And then also the project is fully funded. So it's teed up and ready to go. So really, we're just trying to work through the process from here. And so the current step is to actually acquire 3 parcels of right-of-way for that project. And so there's a legal process that we have to step through for that. Unfortunately, it's difficult to predict the end point of that process, but we're working through that. And as soon as we start to get a little bit closer to the end of that right-of-way acquisition, then we should be able to follow back up with the details for the project bidding and construction. We can provide updates to leadership and then out to the community, hopefully in a few months on that.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you so much. And gentlemen, the next question is, what is the status of upgrading lighting along the Claremont walking trail?
Yeah, let James, you want to take that? Or you want me to take that? Because I might actually have a little bit more. You might.
If you have any context updates, please share them. But I do have some follow-up information to that as well. So do you
Okay,
have any
awesome. Well, let me
updates?
start, and then you can either correct me or give me the update. I know that lighting is an issue on not only that trail, but several streets and different places throughout the district, because we definitely get the calls and emails for it, and so does 311. But that specific trail, my office has gone out there with the Parks and Rec staff, as well as Alabama Power. A actual study was done with Alabama Power, and there was a significant price tag on actually having that trail lit. So everybody thinks that street lights and lighting sprouts out of the ground like trees do, but in fact, not only does the city of Birmingham have a utility bill just like you do as a resident, we also have to pay for the construction of putting that in. So I think we have identified how many light poles that it would take. And now that there is just like everything else, there's a financial component to it that we either have to figure out if it's something that we can meet as a city or not. James?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good answer. Just to add some context to that, so Parks and Rec, they have received a lot of requests citywide to add lighting in a lot of their facilities. And so because, as you noted, there's an upfront capital cost, and then there's also an ongoing utilities cost. So I think our department and Parks and Rec and probably the Department of Finance want to work together to develop a strategic plan, because all of those are legitimate and good requests, but develop a strategic plan for how we can prioritize and hopefully fold in those different areas over time. So this is a great project, something that we agree should be done, but we have to fit it into a larger strategic plan.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler, and everybody, to the citizens of District 2, just to provide a larger context citywide, to add to what Councilor Williams and Mr. Director Fowler have shared. Citywide, just for Park and Rec, when you talk about adding some of the additional lights requested with the capital piece plus the bill piece, it's projected on the low end from 1.4 to 1.8 million additional dollars in one fiscal year. This is not cheap. So, Ms. Silver?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. We want to remind everyone that if you do have a question that you'd like answered, you can send it to townhall@birminghamal.gov. We are receiving a lot of questions on Facebook. And the next one is, can you speak more about the paving and changes that are coming to Puerto Madrid Boulevard?
Yeah, so I'll give a short version, and then I'll let Mr. Fowler give any detail separate from the paving, which I think goes to the portion of the question changes. The paving piece, coming soon. We started the bidding process. Ideally, it will be paid no later than the end of April. Mr. Fowler, would you like to add anything regarding the second part of the question? I guess possible changes to Puerto Madrid?
Yes, sir. And just to add a little bit of context on the paving, so next week we should actually see contractors out installing curb ramps. So that's the first step of the process. That should take about 30 days. And so that's where kind of mid to late April, the resurfacing work should actually start mid to late April. That'll probably carry us just into May, if all goes according to plan. And then after that, there would be a series of adding back in the striping. So temporary striping goes in, and then beyond that, about 30 days out from that, permanent striping comes back in. Regarding possible changes, so it's a good opportunity to revisit the striping along Puerto Madrid. We've seen a pattern of crashes along Puerto Madrid. It's designed currently as a very high-speed roadway, and so people do travel really fast along that roadway. There's a big curve that occurs in the segment that we're talking about resurfacing. Just last night, I believe another car ran off the road in that location. And so what we're going to be doing is actually looking at the intersections and making sure that we can provide adequate turn lanes along that corridor to help kind of clean up the traffic flow and the operations. I look forward in the next few weeks, hopefully, to meeting with some of the neighborhoods and residences just to talk about some of those changes, to make sure that we have that information out there. Additionally, in the curve itself, we'll probably look at installing some enhanced features such as the blinking arrow signs, so the chevron signs as you go around the curve, and then probably some rumble strips as well in the approach from either direction. So when we resurface a roadway, particularly one as important as Port of Madrid, it's a good opportunity to kind of revisit the safety features, especially when we see a pattern of crashes. So.
Yeah, I'm good. I think that I'm just as excited as you are about it, and all of the residents, not only of District 2, but really the Birmingham metro area. I think that's one of the heaviest used roadways. I think I drove it 3 times today, maybe, and we recognize the need for it, and I'm glad that we're able to get that accomplished.
Councilor was doing the matrix on the portal. Go ahead, Cindy.
Thanks so much, Mayor and Councilor. And this one is teed up as something that may be a small project, but a big deal to Eastwood. And there is concern and people who want to know about repairing the entrance to the Eastwood neighborhood. Not a question, but a statement.
We want Ms. Bell to take the question.
Capital projects, yes, Ms. Bell.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening. So basically, we are in the process of discussing the plan to repair that, what we call is a wall of protection. And we hope to actually get the design for repair by the end of this week. So we're working on it. It's just gonna take a couple more weeks for us to get to a place where we actually can give you a schedule and a full repair.
Thank you so much. So the next one may be for the Birmingham Department of Transportation, Mayor. This one says, several years ago, a study was done at the intersection of Leach and Montevallo. Some recommendations came from that. What are the next steps?
That's a good question.
Mr. Fowler?
Yeah, so I'm excited about all the transportation questions getting asked this evening. So that is a good question on that project. So it's my understanding that the city of Mountain Brook was largely the lead in doing a study that occurred right before I think I took office or came into this position. And some recommendations came from that. Unfortunately, we have not been able to implement those recommendations at this time. However, I appreciate the question. Our team dug that study up today just to revisit that, make sure we understood it. It does look like the recommendations that came from that are very achievable. I believe it recommends modifying some of the turn lanes at that intersection. And so we should be able to follow back up with leadership in the next 2 weeks on some ideas for how we can implement on that. It does seem like it's achievable. So I appreciate that question. So.
Calls from residents that drive that. I know that traffic backs up there significantly during rush hour because of the way that the turn lane is laid out. But it is something that we're obviously aware of. We do know the study has been done, and I'm sure Director Fowler is on that.
Yes, sir. Ms. Silva.
Thank you so much, sir. And before we get to the next question, which we may need BPD to answer, we want to remind people who may have missed the beginning of the call that if you had a concern about the vaccine, you may call 858-2221. And as Councilor Williams mentioned earlier, he said no dumping in his neighborhoods in District 2 because you can dump at the landfill where it's absolutely free. And that number is 655-3391. And if you had a question about a drug nuisance property, you can call 254-2369. The next question is, and they want us to address four-wheelers driving on the streets. And I actually have seen them in downtown. The question is, what can be done about off-road vehicles? Mayor?
Well, you know, I think there's certain rules to the road for off-road vehicles that are not allowed. I think if you see it, especially when I see it, it's never a situation of long distance. It's usually in the same particular area. So I would suggest calling 911 and allowing the police to actually respond. If you get a tag number and or description in the block, vicinity, neighborhood, etc., share that detailed information so the police actually know where to go.
Deputy Chief Sellers, is there anything you can add to that, please?
think I'm on now. There we go. Yeah, some of our issues, make sure we get this right. I apologize for the feedback on that. So some of our issue is these four-wheelers are not allowed to be on public roads anyway. Our chase policy doesn't allow us to pursue these vehicles. And a lot of times these vehicles are being driven by minors underage. So we have to be really mindful that we, in our efforts to try to stop this, that we don't injure anybody's child that's out there causing a disturbance, but not actually causing any violence. So it's a hard question for us to answer to put how we address that, because it's happening not just across Birmingham, but it's happening in other major cities as well. It's one of those things that we have to really make sure that the actions that we're taking are not only legal and right, but safe for all parties involved.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. The next one is about illegal dumping. And the question is, does the city ever pay attention to the same illegal dumping and abandoned houses issues that keep getting reported over and over again, not just in Overton, but in other areas of District 2? Mayor?
Is Ralph Bartley, are you on? You want to address the issues of dumping in Overton and or citywide?
Oh, yes, sir. How you doing, Mayor and Council Hunter? I'm Ralph Bartley. I serve as the director with DPW. Yes, that is a concern that we have with this illegal dumping. And there's several sites that we repeatedly go to on the illegal dumping, as well as abandoned houses that report multiple times. There are two, separate issues, which two separate time frame. In the illegal dumping scenario, we have our code enforcement inspector, to go out and see if they can, tie the responsible party. And if successfully, if we can catch the perpetrator, we work, and we clean the site up. If it's on public property, and sometimes might be, on the right of ways or the main thoroughfare, might be in the alleys. Property, and this is a process that can take a long time, similar to, a house that needs attention. In those cases, it involved a lengthy time frame for correction prior to the city placing a lien upon the property owner to address. And this is the first and foremost of the property owner responsibility. The city steps is to help when it's repeated attempt the property owner can fail to correct the issue. So we can get the citizen, more involved, and not to put themselves in harm's way, but if they could, be our eyes out there when we can't actually catch the perpetrator. And if they just take pictures, that would help, try to alleviate some of the illegal dumping. But it's a repeated thing daily. I can say we can go out there and pick it up today, and the next 2 days, you got illegal dumping back in that same area. So it's just gonna be a group effort that we're gonna have to collectively get together and try to come up with a solution. And the other thing, we're working with NOLA camera, and we have some strategically placed in certain areas, and I think that's gonna be a big help. But like I said, we still got to have the citizen engaged in helping as well.
Thank you, sir.
Good information, and we agree 100%. And if you'd like to find out more about illegal dumping, that can be found at www.birminghamal.gov/illegal dumping, and it has information on fines and community services and penalties and so much other information. The next question, as we are coming down on our time this evening, it's from the Huffman neighborhood. And it says, there is an issue with speeding and 18-wheelers coming through the neighborhoods or parking 18-wheelers in the area. What can be done about this?
Cap, our captain, can you want to address that, please?
Can you hear us? We're having a few technical difficulties, and we will give him just a moment to sign on to answer that question. Are you ready?
Hey, I was trying to log on there. Is my video coming on? There we go. We're getting a little slow there. So, Captain Quigley's, computer shut off on her midstream, but we've talked about this. So we've had some complaints from the neighborhood association in that area before in the past, and we've been addressing for the last couple of weeks. So we've wrote numerous citations. We've used the Tactical Operations Precinct, the Citywide Traffic Task Force, the beat officers, and her task force. So we've wrote a lot of tickets in that area. We've not seen as many complaints on 18-wheelers parking in the neighborhoods. I know Captain Quigley has reached out to the beat officers. She's had them ride the areas to see if she can locate the 18-wheelers, but we've not been able to. So some of our concerns may be a lot of these these tractor trailer drivers are off the road or on the road 30 or 45 days at a time. So we may be missing them. So they may be coming in for a weekend, parking their truck or tractor trailer in the neighborhood, and then are gone the next day. So what we want to do is make sure that we encourage people to contact Southeast Precinct if they see that happening, or use our app, and we will send an officer out there immediately to address those issues. But right now, she's had her crime prevention officer go back and look through the complaint log that she's got there, and we've not had any complaints in recent memory from 18-wheelers parked on the streets. But we are ready to address that issue as soon as we find it.
Thank you so much, Deputy Chief. And our last question of the evening, this is for you or Mayor. Are there fines for people having unused or unused vehicles in their yards or trash in their yards? And is the city issuing fines?
The answer is yes and yes. There is something called environmental court. Prior to the coronavirus, I believe it was a minimum twice a month. Environmental court allows our inspectors to go out if they see something, or if a neighbor calls it in to 311, et cetera, related to inoperable vehicles, and or things that don't belong in their yard, front or back or porch. There's usually a process, y'all. We're not into just finding people and punishment, right? Sometimes there are circumstances we may not know. There may be a senior or elder who doesn't have family and didn't have the necessary resources to fix their car or get it removed. They may need help. And so we give time, sometimes anywhere from 30 to 90 days. But for repeat offenders, the answer is yes, there are fines. Those fines range anywhere from $100 up to $500 for certain state or local ordinance violations. In addition to that, there are other additional fees to pay. But that is not always the first rule. We actually try to talk to citizens first. Environmental officers knock on the doors and engage to see if there's anything we can do to assist. If that doesn't work, if it escalates, we escalate by issuing a summons to appear in environmental court for that citizen to go before a judge and explain that issue. The judge then gives additional time. If it's not rectified, then we move to actual punitive things that includes up to fines. That is usually a last result. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that it's important to realize in the mayor's answer all of the different allocations of time that are necessary for that citizen to get his or her due process. And so that means that they do have an opportunity to show up before a judge, and they do have an opportunity, more than likely, in front of the judge to get whatever's going on right before a re-inspection. So yes, it might have called in, there might have been an inspection, there might not be something overnight that you see in terms of a change of behavior like an inoperable vehicle, or if it's a housing code enforcement issue or any code enforcement issue, but that That doesn't mean an inspection has not taken place, a citation has not been written, which is in fact a summons for them to appear before a judge in municipal court.
Gotcha. So before we give you back to Sylvan, there is one last question I imagine people want to talk about. We talked about banks big, right? Port on the Grid big, but Montclair was once a big deal. Hospital, you want to give any type of update, or you have any update?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk more than about Montclair. I'm going to steal 5 more minutes of your time and everybody else's time
Boom.
in the
I'm sitting back,
room.
I'm chilling.
As I see all the eye rolls in the room. I know people are hungry. No, but seriously though, that the Montclair question is a great question because we have a lot of very large projects going on in the city of Birmingham, and I proudly get to say specifically in District 2. The old Trinity Hospital or
Trinity,
Baptist
yeah.
Montclair Hospital is one of them. It's about a $250 million project that is multi-phase and multi-year. It's going to be called something called Arbor Terrace. So if you're curious about it, you can Google Arbor Terrace, and there is a website that they have of projected renderings and things like that. The Birmingham City Council has approved multiple zoning changes, as well as multiple neighborhood meetings have taken place over the past year with the Crestwood South neighborhood, and the developer and the neighborhood have gotten comfortable with a plan. Those plans are in action, and demolition actually already has started. A lot of people don't realize that demolition is going on and that project is underway because the way that it's situated behind the wood line, but that is a project that is going on. While we're talking about large capital projects that are in the multi-millions and even hundreds of millions of dollars, I think it's very important to talk about a few more projects. One of which is the Amazon last mile distribution facility. The Amazon facility will be the first of its kind in the state of Alabama, in the Birmingham metro area, and will be a huge economic boom for us. Not only are we replacing, when we talk about like banks, an abandoned structure, a structure that's not on the tax roll, but we're also, and having that job creation, but we're also bringing a last mile distribution facility, which is notably different from the other Amazon warehouses that people might be familiar with, such as the one in Bessemer. When you look a little bit further south of that, on the same Highway 78, Crestwood Boulevard, you will see the old Birmingham Inn, the dilapidated motels that were a constant narcotics and prostitution issue being turned into the new VA health clinic. That will be huge because it will provide a lot of good paying jobs. And we're again taking something that was being, was a constant, not only an eyesore, but really a criminal issue for that neighborhood. And we're going to be able to see that property transform. Was by there last week, and construction is well underway. And that actually backs up to Putnam Middle School. So if you think about it, we had children going to one of our middle schools, which is Putnam, with across the street there being a motel that was very commonly used for narcotics and prostitution. And we've been able to take that and turn it into something hopefully positive, not just for the neighborhood, but for all of those families that send their kids to Putnam Middle School. Another thing we want to talk about in the district is the area close to Barber Motorsports. It's going to where the Southern Museum of Flight hopefully will end up being, but it also is going to be a technology park. We've been able to secure an abandoned mine land grant. That a lot of that property, many people don't know. First of all, it's not in Leeds, it is in the city of Birmingham. But second of all, it used to be mines used by U.S. Steel. And so in partnership with the city of Birmingham and U.S. Steel, we've been able to get federal dollars to turn that into something that is going to bring numerous jobs and tax revenue to the city, which when the mayor presents this upcoming budget, I'm sure the council will be appreciative of. Another large project, also a little bit south, is on Highway 280. And it's something that the mayor and I have recently worked on and was recently passed by the council, but Grandview Phase 2, the second professional office building of Grandview, will probably bring an estimated 90 to 98. That's almost $100 million of tax revenue over the next 10 years to the city of Birmingham. Not only will that provide hundreds of jobs in the city of Birmingham, but it also will transform what our budget looks like, probably way past than when you and I are serving in the collective roles that we're serving in today. So we have a lot of exciting projects that are happening all across Birmingham, but specifically in District 2. And I think it's important that we not only highlight that with Harbor Terrace, but also with the other large capital projects. And when you start adding up, $100 million project, $80 million project, $250 million project, you're talking about a very significant amount of dollars that are being reinvested into not only Birmingham, not only the east side of Birmingham, but projects that are going to change the entire central Alabama, not Birmingham Metro, but central Alabama. And so I'm excited that I've been allowed to be a part of that with the team.
Appreciate it. And we gotta get the people what they want. So the coronavirus took out, unfortunately, a lot of small businesses, some local, some chain. The most known chain is the OG Roncy Olive Garden District 2. People still sad about it. And that was a joke. So make sure we do something about that too. You want to say a closing thank you and then pass it back to me to close us out?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to serve alongside the mayor, his awesome team, my awesome team. Shout out to India Bailey and Mabel Perry. And obviously, if anybody has called my office, they know that that either India or Mabel are the two ladies that actually pick up the phone and make sure that whatever the issue is gets solved. And I want to thank the mayor's team too, because the mayor's team, including Sybil, Kelvin, and the entire mayor's team knows that there's probably no one more annoying than the three of us, me included, on getting issues resolved for District 2. But they always have a smile on their face when we call, even though we might have called them 5 times already that day. And so just thank everybody that works with us, because it is an honor for me to be able to serve the citizens of District 2 in the city of Birmingham.
Just want y'all to know, District 2 is not 5 times, it's 50-11. Ms. Silver has something she wants to say before I close this out.
Thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for those kind words. And you called 10 times. We just want to let everyone know that we are here for you. And if you have questions, we have teams that will definitely answer them. You can send those questions to townhall@birminghamal.gov. And if you'd like to see tonight's PowerPoint, which had everything in it, from information on the vaccine call center to landfills to drug nuisance properties, please go to the city's website. You can find that information and the PowerPoint at www.birminghamal.gov/townhalls. And Mayor, I now turn it back over to you.
Very short and brief. This is a round of thank yous. I may have seemed relaxed tonight, but it's probably because the councilor and I have a really, really genuine good working relationship with each other. It's an honor to serve with Councilman Hunter Williams, his team. They're great. And to the tech team behind the scenes today that have made this town hall successful, thank you all so much. To the citizens of District 2, shout out to the presidents, vice presidents, the secretaries of all the neighborhoods of District 2, small business owners in District 2, the faith leaders in District 2, everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Please be safe, and hope you have a good night.